All right. So now we want you to practice also generating the HTML file. Um, in the previous assignments, I wanted you to focus more on laying out the CSS without changing the HTML file too much. And that was good because if you are more of the front end, you may only be allowed to work on the CSS, and maybe the HTML is influenced heavily by the developers. Again, HTML should have information and CSS should dictate how things should look. But now that you are going to have more opportunities to directly influence the HTML, I want to have a word of caution. So for example, let's look at this website. When you look at this website, of course, now that you know you can use CSS to make things look however you want, you still got to be careful. So for example, when you look at this, what would you put this as? Would you use an image tag? What about this one, United Nations? Would you put that as an image tag? Or would you put that as a text? If you do put it as a text, do you maybe use header, paragraph? Same thing, right? This one, okay, maybe if this page is about UN International Day of Peace, maybe instead of just putting that as a normal text and using font size to make it look bigger, maybe you use H1 because this is what that page is about. How about this? Home message resource action guide and UN observation. It looks like a button. So do you make it put it into the button HTML tag? You probably shouldn't because these are links. It's just a link that looks like a button, right? That when you hover, it has a different effect. But do you just put it as 5 links right next to each other? Well, it's really a list, right? Usually lists are displayed from top to bottom, but you don't have to do that anymore. Using CSS, you can say, hey, it's a list. So instead of putting list 1 here, list 2 here, you can say make it into an inline block or an inline in this case, right? And give some padding, right? Maybe give some border. What about this white border here? Well, I kind of gave it away. You can make that into one of the border, right? Or you can put that as one of the margin, right? So that is separated by the next element by 1 pixel. Anyway, when you are scanning the page, pay attention and things that you think should be heading, put it into heading. Put it into H1. Maybe put that into H2. Maybe that should be H3. What about that line? Maybe that needs to be a border attached to this particular heading. What about this one? Is that a button? Well, think about the functionality. What is it supposed to do when you click on it? It's a link. It's a link that looks like a button, right? So in the HTML side, this should be an A link, not a button HTML tag, right? So forth, okay? Again, use headings. You want to make the HTML as clear, as simple as possible. Okay, shorter and more concise your HTML with less tags, with less classes, with less IDs, better it is because your CSS is also going to look better as well. All right, let's look at another website. Same thing, right? Maybe that one you can put it as an image, but again, all courses, don't worry about these animation and things because you haven't learned JavaScript yet. But again, even these things, maybe that should be a list, right? And it's a link too, right? So maybe you do a ULLI and put each one of them and use CSS to make it align this way instead of from top to bottom, right? That should be H1. Maybe you can make that into a link. You can maybe put that under H2, maybe. Maybe that could be H3. And these things, table of contents, maybe that's a list. Yes, it doesn't have the bullet points, but you can get rid of the bullet points using CSS and so forth. Okay, so when you're scanning these or when you're given a picture by the designer, again, I know you can use CSS to make things look really big. I know you don't technically have to use any H1 or H2 or H3, but use it because it will make your HTML more readable, but also by using more headings, you're also making the site more search engine friendly. So you're doing some SEO work as well. Okay, so just remember that as you are looking at the image and now you're trying to construct the HTML. Make it as simple as possible. You think about what its functionality is. Is it supposed to take people to a new link? Then that's an A tag, right? Is it, anyway, so just think about that. Don't use too many images. If there is a way to not use the image, try to find a way, because it just takes less resource. Even these, like, gradients and things, you can almost always do all of these using CSS. Again, okay, even these, okay, like that line is probably a border left of whatever this content is. Again, there are many ways to do it, but just try to keep things as simple as possible. Okay.